We are not a political operation. Fox is. We are a news operation.
Yesterday, as President Obama addressed the veterans of foreign wars in Phoenix, a man at a pro-healthcare reform rally just outside wore a semi-automatic assault rifle on his shoulder and a pistol on his hip. The Associated Press reports about a dozen people in all at that event were visible carrying firearms. And the reason we're talking about this, a lot of talk here, Dylan, because people feel like, yes, there are Second Amendment rights for sure, but also there are questions about whether this has racial overtones. I mean, here you have a man of color in the presidency and white people showing up with guns strapped to their waists.
Now, clearly you can see the man who goes by the name Chris, and that he's African American.
Also, there are questions about whether this has racial overtones. I mean, here you have a man of color in the presidency and white people showing up with guns strapped to their waists. A man at a pro-healthcare reform rally just outside wore a semi-automatic assault rifle on his shoulder.
This man outside. Now, what's interesting about this is we now learn he was one of about 12 protesters who were packing near the president.
It sounds simplistic when you put it that way, but it is real that there is tremendous anger in this country about government, the way government seems to be taking over the country, anger about a black person being president, just several upheavals in the country over the last 10 years, from 9/11 to the economic tsunami, to the black man becoming president. And, you know, we see these hate groups rising up, and this is definitely part of that. I'm not going to be surprised if we see somebody get a chance and take a chance and really try to hurt him, or really, you know, and I mean, it's up to the Secret Service to make sure that it doesn't actually become history. But, you know, I think we're going to see somebody, you know, some sort of Squeaky Fromm, some sort of Mark Hinckley figure, because there's so much anger in the country about him, about what's going on with government.
Angry at government and racism, you put those two together.
We are not a political operation. Fox is. We are a news operation.
Bobby Jindal, not only yesterday, but then again today, was asked interviewer about no-go zones and said, I did say so-called no-go zones, and I think that the radical left absolutely wants to pretend like this problem is not here. Pretending it's not here won't make it go away. Somehow this is all the fault of the radical left.
Yeah, you know, I think Governor Jindal is protesting a bit too much. He might be trying to, you know, scrub some of the brown off of his skin as he runs to the right, you know, in a Republican presidential exploratory bid. I think it's the worst, you know, common denominator of American politics to marginalize any minority demographic group. And I'm pretty sure that Governor Jindal will come to his senses, hopefully, in the next couple of days.
We are not a political operation. Fox is. We are a news operation.
To one that I guess was controversial in some circles, the biracial family. Here's the second edition of that from Cheers.
Gracie, you know how our family has daddy and mommy?
And me.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty soon, you're gonna have a baby brother.
And a puppy.
Deal.
Earlier today, MSNBC President Phil Griffin received a phone call and a letter from Reince Priebus, chairman of the Republican National Committee. The letter regarded an inappropriate tweet that was sent last night via the MSNBC Twitter account. Mr. Griffin issued the following statement. The tweet last night was outrageous and unacceptable. We immediately acknowledged that it was offensive and wrong, apologized, and deleted it. We have dismissed the person responsible for the tweet. I personally apologize to Mr. Priebus and to everyone offended. At MSNBC, we believe in passionate, strong debate about the issues, and we invite voices from all sides to participate. That will never change. Signed, Phil Griffin. And we'll be back after this.
Trying to wrangle the current Republican Party into line.
But let's be fair. If there's somebody who is a hard worker, when he goes to Washington, is Paul Ryan. Not only works with the Republicans, but Democrats. You know very well that I work on the immigration issue, trying to get Republicans to support immigration reform. Paul Ryan is somebody who has supported immigration reform, has worked with somebody like Luis Gutierrez. Luis Gutierrez is very respectful, speaks highly of Paul Ryan. This is somebody who's trying to govern.
Alfonso, I feel you, but I just want to pause on one thing, because I don't disagree with you. you that I actually think Mr. Ryan is a great choice for this role. But I want us to be super careful when we use the language hard worker. Because, I mean, I actually keep an image of folks working in cotton fields on my office wall because it is a reminder about what hard work looks like. So I feel you that he's a hard worker. I do, but in the context of relative privilege. And I just want to point out that when you talk about work-life balance and being a hard worker, the moms who don't have health care, who are working on... I
understand that.
But we don't call them hard workers. We call them failures. We call them people who are sucking off the system. No, really, y'all do. That is really what you guys do as a party.
That is very unfair. I think we cannot generalize about the Republican Party. I agree.
That's true.
Okay. It won in 2010, and I don't think Romney has to go out there and prove to be severely conservative on every issue.
He said he was.
But that's his description of himself.
But he ran as a full mooner. He ran as a full mooner, Michael. You know, he was saying there's no such thing as science. He doesn't really believe in it.
I totally get that, but I'm just saying.
How can you say you go from flat or round? How can he go from flat Earth, I don't believe in evolution, to all of a sudden I'm teaching biology?
Said. Why are you putting those words in his mouth? He's never said he's a flat Earth and he doesn't believe in evolution. Those are your words, Chris, and that's how you would like to paint him to be.
Because that's
Romney
who he is.
But that's not who he is. Romney will paint his own picture.
Where's he on science?
Ask him. I don't know.
Where's he on climate?
It wasn't an issue in the primary.
Okay, let's go. Well, it certainly was on the Grand Wizard crowd over there. Anyway, look Howard, let's take a look at this.
I resent that. Now, come on. Now, what is this Grand Wizard nonsense?
Okay, I'm just saying the far-right party. All right, I'll relax.
Ku Klux Klan, give me a break. You don't go there with me on that.
Okay, great. All right, great. Okay, good. Thank you. There's none of those problems over there, all those birthers out there. Anyway, the latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll, there's about 30 of them in the Congress right now who are the birther crowd that are right there. Anyway.
Massachusetts over and over again. Let's go to Chris Matthews for his response in Denver. Chris, what do you think?
Well, this tonight wasn't an MSNBC debate, was it? It just wasn't. It had none of the things you mentioned. It didn't mention all the key fighting points of this campaign. And certainly there was no Bobby Kennedy in the green room before Barack Obama came out tonight. I don't know what he was doing out there. He had his head down. He was enduring the debate rather than fighting it. Romney, on the other hand, came in with a campaign. He had a plan. He was going to dominate the time. He was going to be aggressive. He's going to push the moderator around, which he did effectively. He was going to relish the evening, enjoying it. Nothing to do with the words he spoke. Here's my question for Obama. I know he likes to say he doesn't watch cable television, but maybe he should start. Maybe should start. I don't know how he let Romney get away with the crap he threw out tonight about Social Security. Listen to the stuff he got away with. He said, you know, emergency room. The latest thing we got from Romney, because he said so, is, you know what I want to do with people when they're poor? Shove them in the emergency room. Why didn't Obama say that? Why didn't he say that? You talk about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicare people, they're part of your 47%. You want to drop them from the list of eligible Americans. You don't have any care for these people. What are you talking about? We've got it on tape, Governor. We got it on tape what you think of these people. Don't come out here and pretend you care about old people because you met somebody at some campaign event. You've written off 47% of the country before you even started. Where was Obama tonight? He should watch... Well, not just hardball, Rachel should watch you, and should watch the Reverend Al, he should watch Lawrence. He would learn something about this debate. There's a hot debate going on in this country. You know where it's being held? Here, on this network, is where we're having the debate. We have our knives out. We go after the people and the facts. What was he doing tonight? He went in there disarmed. He was like, oh, wait, an hour and a half, I think I can get through this thing. And I thought it was an amazing, but I've written speeches all my life. Of course, nothing like this. And let me tell you what was great about it. What he did was, and it's in military practice, it's called attacking from a defensive position. It's how Henry won at Agincourt. It's how Alexander won. It's how Reagan kicked the butt of Jimmy Carter. And what you do is this. You take your opponent's best shot and you throw it back at him. Are we a nation of whiners? If this is an ownership society, you own your failure. Was my upbringing a celebrity's upbringing? If you're going to follow bin Laden to the gates of hell, how about going to his cave and getting him? And how dare you say this election is a test of patriotism when we're all in this together? It was a great way of throwing back the other side's best shot and saying it's full of crap.
We are not a political operation. Fox is. We are a news operation.
Not so much about MSNBC and what happens here, but more that sometimes when you talk about Edward Snowden, you do defend him, and some people wonder if that crosses a line.
Sure, I do defend him, just like people on MSNBC defend President Obama and his officials and Democratic Party leaders 24 hours a day.
Not everyone on MSNBC
I don't make any bones
does
about
that 24 hours a day.
No, not everybody, but a lot of people on MSNBC do. And so, sure, I don't make any bones about the fact that I consider what Edward Snowden did to be quite heroic, just like I consider what Chelsea Manning did to be heroic, and Daniel Ellsberg, who's one of my political heroes. I, as a journalist, am very grateful when people sacrifice their own interests to come forward and bring transparency to the United States government. That, to me, is what journalism is about, and we need a lot of that in the United States. So I absolutely do defend what Edward Snowden does, and I don't pretend otherwise.
But resist we much. We must
always speak before Barack Obama, not after Barack Obama.
I have to tell you, you know, it's part of reporting this case, this election. The feeling most people get when they hear a Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
Steady.
No, seriously, it's a dramatic event. He speaks about America in a way that has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with the feeling we have about our country, and that is an objective assessment.
And John Zinkler joins me now. He's a radio host with KGIL 1260 AM News Radio in Los Angeles, and has previously interviewed Palin and others for his film Media Malpractice: How Obama Got Elected. John, good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Always interesting to go out with the people with Barack Obama's official network.
Now, I know you're very critical of the way that journalists in general have dealt with Governor Palin. I want to ask you today about your interview with Sarah Palin.
Gee, I wonder why.
So let me begin with, do you want to do the interview? You want to talk about this?
Yeah, I'd be thrilled to. Let's go for it.
Let me ask you what Sarah Palin's problem with Letterman was. What was it about the top 10 list that hurt her feelings?
Well, I don't know if her feelings were hurt. You'd have to ask her. She called David Letterman pathetic, which I think was an understatement, because not only did he call her slutty, you left out the part where he also joked about her teenage daughter being knocked up by Alex Rodriguez in the middle of Yankee Stadium while she was at the game. By the way, I also happened to ask her about Keith Olbermann blatantly lying about her allegedly plagiarizing a speech, which she didn't do. I doubt that that'll come up on this particular network.
Well, it's certainly not going to come up other than your mention in this particular interview, because I want to ask you about David Letterman and Sarah Palin. But again, if you'd like to talk about that, I'm willing to go forward with the conversation. Yes?
I'll talk about whatever you want. Hit me with your best shot.
Good. So in this case, it's comedy. To talk about her real itinerary in New York, it's kind of serious, not really funny. Why did she take such offense? She called him pathetic, so she obviously took offense. Why was she so offended by David Letterman?
Well, Contessa, since you're a female, you might be a better expert on whether or not it's appropriate to call a public figure slutty for no apparent reason, and to joke about her daughter being knocked up in the middle of Yankee Stadium while she's at the game. How would you feel about that, Contessa?
That's actually happened to me, and I'm fine. I'm still here.
Really? David Letterman joked about you being slutty
and
about your daughter being knocked up?
Not David Letterman, but it's happened to me publicly. Okay, we'll change topics. How about this? We just got a new poll out that shows that a majority of Americans don't know who speaks for the Republican Party. In this case, Sarah Palin, we're showing the people who got some of the responses. You've got Rush Limbaugh and Dick Cheney and John McCain. What about Sarah Palin? Does she feel at all concerned that she's not seen as a voice for the Republican Party?
Let me get this straight. You find this surprising or shocking that because you in the media portray Republicans as old white men, that the public perceives Republicans as old white men, and you destroy in a blatant character assassination Sarah Palin's character, and the public thinks that she's not worthy of that, at least in some terms.
John, in your interview with Sarah Palin, did you ask her any tough questions, or are you functioning now as her spokesperson?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you interviewed her. I'm curious about the information you elicited from Sarah Palin.
This was a great interview. I urge anyone who's interested in the real Sarah Palin to go to howobamagotelected.com. You can listen to the whole 16 minutes. One of the questions I asked her was whether or not she felt dissed by John McCain when he went on Jay Leno, also on NBC, back when he was the host of The Tonight Show, and basically dissed her. And surprise, 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 she gave an incredibly classy answer, showing far more class than clearly most people on this network have.
I don't really know what to do with that. You know what? Honestly, I'm here to give you an opportunity. I consider myself a common sense thinker. I haven't attacked you. And for you to come on and use those sort of insults insults me. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate that.
Okay.
Much
Well,
more news
you guys
ahead
are
on
certainly
Cut the
deserving
mic,
of all.
please. Much more news ahead on MSNBC.